I'm Tim. Welcome to What You Want. Thanks for logging on. From the Roger Dubuis Easy Diver, we transition to another unique dive reference within the Richemont portfolio. This is IWC's Aquatimer Deep Three, reference 3557, the third in a tradition of mechanical depth gauge watches that dates back to the original 1999 GST Deep One, the very first wristwatch to include both a mechanical depth gauge and a mechanical movement. But the 46mm titanium Aquatimer Deep Three, one of the latest and hottest references from IWC, improves upon both of its predecessors with complications and safety-oriented features. So let's put it on the wrist, see how it looks, and get an impression of how this mechanical depth gauge watch feels. Now I have to say right off the bat, for a 46mm watch that is 16.5 millimeters thick, it wears remarkably well. Now my wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, not big by any means, maybe even a little bit below average in size, but because this is a titanium case and because of this pleated or bellows style rubber strap, I have absolutely no difficulty getting an incredibly close fit. And because it is a traditional pin buckle, it's easy for me to get a very precise fit without having to remove links or perform any micro adjustments. So ergonomically, already a triumph. Now, the look of the watch is very technical, very pronounced. Ultimately, this is a watch that screams utility. This is a watch that comes and is proud of its place in the IWC professional watch lineage. Since the original Ingenieur of 1955, IWC has had a history, possibly even dating back to its pilot's watches of the 1930s, the pilot's special, and then later the Type 52 TSC or BR pilot's watch. IWC builds watches that are, even in the luxury era, no holds barred, professional tool quality references. And I want to emphasize that this one really epitomizes that aesthetic between its calibrations, its size, the various calibration knobs externally, the depth gauge reset button at 2 o'clock, and the fact that the metal features multiple contrasting finishes to emphasize that this is a pseudo-industrial look. This watch is proud of the fact that it's a machine, and if you like that technical aesthetic, this may be as good as it gets. But I also want to emphasize that it is wrist-friendly, and it is a truly useful everyday watch if you should choose to use it as such. First and foremost, you can see the IWC caliber 30120, which features stop seconds, is based on the automatic winding ETA 2824, so that's bomb-proof. That's a good start for a watch with this kind of aggressive sporting style. Now, 42-hour power reserve, very tough. We move upwards to the dial itself from inside the case, and we see a mass of calibrations and indications. So how do we make sense of this? The best place to start is the outside, and then work our way in. So externally, we see several different protuberances from the case. Here, 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 here. Right here is actually the intake, the actual pressure intake for the depth gauge. The depth gauge is featured on this scale, and it reads, although it reads to 60 meters, it actually stops at 50, and that's because IWC believes 50 is the maximum diving depth for amateur divers, and it's assuming, yes, if you are a professional, you probably have some sort of supplemental electronic diving computer, and this is more of a backup, and IWC even says as much in its technical documentation for this watch. So here's the intake for the water pressure, here's the scale for the depth gauge, and here is a knob that is used, watch very carefully at the index at 12, that is actually used to calibrate the diving scale to adjust for atmospheric variations, different temperatures, pressures, and altitudes. So now you can see I bring the two indications of the depth scale even with the index at 12. At this point, the blue indication represents my current depth, and that's off to the right here. The red indicates the deepest point I have dived during my submergence, and that's used to help me keep track of how much decompression may be required on the way up. Now, other calibrations, so one of these is real time and then one of these is permanent, and what will happen is, and I can show you a little bit about that right here, the red will stay where it is and the blue will wax and wane as my depth increases and decreases, but what I can do right here is I can reset both of them using this reset trigger. First I've got to reset the blue. The blue, as I said, isn't fixed, but the red will measure extremes, and it'll stay pegged at the farthest point of your dive until you reset it like so. Okay, that having been overcome, I can show you the SafeDive system, which is another calibration. This is designed by IWC in the tradition of the original reference 812-1967 Aquatimer, which used the super compressor case. That had an internally rotating safety bezel, unidirectional as well. The difference here is that you can only move the bezel in one direction using this circumferential ring, nicely knurled, really easy to grasp with wet hands, gloved hands, or bare hands. And then you can only set the index right here in a single direction. Because it is protected inside the watch, the entire bezel is calibrated and loomed, which is really nice and something you don't get on most externally mounted unidirectional dive bezels. Now the watch also features a tremendous amount of thoughtful engineering from a practical standpoint, and that includes the quick release lug system that IWC introduced on the 2014 Aquatimer range. Basically a pull tab system. It allows you to swap out the straps, just pop them off using no particular tools, and you can swap in a textile strap, you can swap in a bracelet, you can swap in a new rubber if this one somehow gets torn or damaged. It's a versatile system that adds a lot of practical value to the watch. Should you want to change the strap or maybe put it on some kind of a bracelet and back off this uber technical utilitarian look, maybe on metal links it would look a little bit more formal. If you've got a wrist to pull off the formal look with a 46mm watch like this, kudos to you. You've got that option with this reference 3557 Aquatimer Deep Three. And it continues in the tradition of the 99 GST Deep 1 and the 2006 Deep 2. It's an important lineage because it maintains IWC's credentials as a manufacturer of technical watches. Even as they've branched off into complications, they've branched off into celebrity co-branded watches and themed watches. The bottom line is that IWC remains a very technically driven company at heart, originally a producer of pocket watches and long considered to be something of the engineer's watchmaker. IWC builds watches like the Deep Three as flagship models to uphold that tradition and basically telegraph a signal to the faithful that they haven't forgotten where they come from a watchmaking standpoint. So I just want to recap a few important points of this watch. Just mentioned that this is a mechanical depth gauge. IWC views it as principally a backup instrument for those diving with a computer. It reads down to 50 meters on the depth scale. It is water resistant down to 100 meters, so you've got plenty of reserve water resistance beyond the reading of the depth calibrations. This watch, which was purchased in February of 2015, comes not only with all IWC boutique accessories, packaging, technical manuals, documents of provenance, but it comes with a signed and valid IWC warranty card. So as of February 2015, this watch is eligible for the balance of the IWC factory warranty protection on all fit finish materials and mechanisms. For all of you Bioshock fans out there, I want to add that there is one last romantic touch. When I talk about IWC not forgetting where it came from, it doesn't forget where the diving arts came from. And there's this gorgeous vintage diving suit with helmet and breastplate, a beautiful piece and really just the cherry on the sundae, so to speak, to a wonderful reimagining of IWC's mechanical depth gauge in this IWC Aquatimer Deep Three reference 3557, one of the hottest new technical releases from the IWC Aquatimer range, available 100% complete with all factory accessories from Watch You Want.